Well, good day again. I'm actually out hiking in a place today that I haven't been in quite a while. In fact, where I'm at here, they've rearranged this. Now, you can't see it right here, and I didn't bring my tripod today out here to do this. So I'll have to show it to you when I get done talking here in a minute. There's a big kind of a pond area right out here, and it's got a lot more water now because of the rain recently. But this is, they call this an aquatic viewing area. Occasionally I've heard some frogs jumping around, and of course I'm certain there's probably snakes around here. They probably won't disturb me where I'm at, so I'm just not going to worry too much about it. And there's a lot of insects flying around as well. I do want to apologize. I hope that this particular video turns out a little bit better than the previous one did, where I had to do it in two spaces because of the way the camera kind of cut off on me. So I'm hoping that issue has been resolved, but we'll find out when I go to post this, and when I look at it here in a little bit to see if it has. It's sort of trial and error still, trying to learn how this thing works. So I'm hoping that all goes well with it. So whenever I get done here in just a second, I'm going to show you some of this around here, and then time permitting, we'll go back on part of the trail that I was on. Since I said last time that we're still in the middle of Holy Week now, I'm not sure what day people will be watching this, but it's April the 14th, 2022. Just for posterity's sake, I guess, for those who may be watching this in the future. So this is then the time during Holy Week. This is on a Thursday, when it's traditionally thought of as the night of the Last Supper, when Jesus institutes the Lord's Supper, and when he goes to the Garden of Gethsemane with his disciples. That's kind of what I want to talk about today, about Jesus' time in the garden, where he goes with his disciples there. And he goes after the institution of the Lord's Supper, and he tells them one of them's going to betray him. Of course, it's Judas. He tells Peter that Peter's going to deny him. Peter denies that he'll do it, but Jesus tells him exactly what's going to happen, that he's going to deny him on not once, but 3 different occasions that night. And then they go out to what we commonly refer to as the Garden of Gethsemane. It's worth noting the Bible never actually calls it the Garden of Gethsemane. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, what's commonly referred to as the Synoptic Gospels, refer to it as Gethsemane. It doesn't call it a garden. Gethsemane just means a olive press, where olive oil would be made. So this was apparently some place where there were olive groves, and it's associated with the Mount of Olives, so it would make sense that there would be a place nearby with that. The Gospel of John does not call it Gethsemane. He refers to it as the garden. So we call it the Garden of Gethsemane because we put the Gospel accounts together. But there's actually nowhere in the Gospels that refers to it as the Garden of Gethsemane. Leaving all that to the side, nevertheless, Jesus goes there, and he brings his 11 disciples with him, and he leaves 8 of them sort of at an entrance point, I guess you could say, and he carries Peter, James, and John with him. Those were the 3 that were usually with him when he went to special places. When he went to raise Jairus' daughter from the dead, he took those 3, and when he went to the Mount of Transfiguration, he took those 3. Well, now again, he takes these same 3 with him, Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, and he tells them to watch and pray. And then it says he goes a little bit further, and then he just falls down on his face. Now, I'm putting all 3 accounts together. They don't all tell it exactly the same way, but it's all the same story in Matthew, Mark, and Luke as they deal with this. And Jesus prays, and we know this famous I'll say famous, but rather well known what he has to say. He says, Father, he says, if there be any way, let this cup pass from me. He says, yet not my will, but thy will be done. And we see he does that on 2 or 3 different occasions. He prays it, he gets up, comes back, his disciples, they took a nap. I mean, Peter, James, and John, they've taken a nap, and he wakes them up and tells them to pray, to spend this time in prayer. So he does this on 3 different occasions. As I say, that he goes and to pray. It's always an interesting thought to me that when Jesus goes there to pray, after he has told his disciples in several different places through the Gospels that he's going to Jerusalem, he's going to be killed, and on the 3rd day he's going to rise again. And he's told them that at least on 3 different occasions. And the implication in some places is that he's told them that over and over. They don't seem to get it either. It doesn't seem to register with them what he's talking about. The average reader just reading it would know what's going to happen in Jerusalem, but they seem kind of clueless as to what's going to happen. Because it's not the picture they had of the Messiah. So that's probably why they don't quite understand it. Nevertheless, he's not told them what's going to happen. He said that it's that's just that's what he was sent to earth for. That's why he came, and it's what's going to happen. Yet here he is in the garden. As a matter of fact, even on one occasion, just to backtrack a second, Peter rebukes him and says, "No, Lord, this is never going to happen to you." And Jesus has told him it's going to happen. Peter says, No, far be it. It'll never happen to you. And that's when Jesus says to Peter, "Get thee behind me, Satan." He says, "For you're not thinking about the things of God, but the things of man." And that's in Matthew chapter 16. Just one particular reference of that, where you'll find that. But yet we find Jesus here in the garden, almost like he's praying, let Peter be right. So it's sort of an interesting thing. The way to look at that is that here Jesus is praying that the cup would pass from him. He'd asked James and John, the other 2 that were there as well, "Can you drink of the cup that I'm going to drink from?" He hadn't, he knew exactly what he was talking about, what was going to happen when he got to Jerusalem. But yet, so you see here a very honest picture of who Jesus is. And this is one of the things I've said myself before of the Gospels. It strikes of their authenticity, because if they were trying to make Jesus out to be a sort of superhero, sort of this comic book type superhero, you wouldn't have put that in there. So it's what makes it ring true that this was, he actually said this. It shows him being, who he is. It shows the truth of it. And it shows really the human side of Jesus, one that we don't often focus on in a lot of our testimony and preaching and all about Jesus and our confessions, but it's nevertheless true. We say he is fully human and fully God, but it's almost we skip over the part of fully human and don't want to think about it too much. But we sort of see this was this shows him at his utmost, at his humanness. But nonetheless, he does show what later writers will say. The Apostle Paul specifically said he became obedient to the point of death, that he submitted himself to God. He became obedient to the point of death. That's in the 2nd chapter of Philippians that I'm referring to. And that he was obedient to the call that God had placed on him, that his Father had given to him in coming to this earth. When he says, "Not my will be done, but thy will be done." So, we see that. And a lot of people have said that in a lot of ways that the battle was won in the garden, or in Gethsemane, whichever one we want to call it. He said that's really where the battle was won. It wasn't won at Calvary. It was done what he had to do. The defeat, everything we're told that had to be done at Calvary. But in a real sense, the battle is, and as far as Jesus, the humanness of Jesus, shall we say, was won in the garden, where he says, "Not my will, but thine be done." From that point on, he shows no hesitation about going to the cross whatsoever. Tells Peter, when Peter tries to defend him with the sword, he says, "Put your sword away," and he's ready to go. He shows he doesn't try to defend himself in any real sense. And best we can say is he actually gives evidence against himself. He testifies against himself in one place where they ask him something, and he says, "Yes, I am the Christ," and they say, "We don't need any other witnesses. We've got his own testimony against him." So at that point, after that, he shows no hesitation in going to the cross. There's one other thing that I've always kind of looked at too, that to say about what Jesus did there in the garden that I think is important, and that is this: that I kind of put it as like he had sort of a couple of choices that he could have done. One is that he could have done exactly what Peter wanted to do, and presumably some of the other disciples as well, and that is raise an army, take up arms against the Romans, and probably against the Jewish establishment in Jerusalem, the Sadducees, the temple establishment there, to take up arms against them, to overthrow them and to set up the Messianic kingdom here on this earth. That was sort of the one thing, was to to fully engage both the Romans as well as the Jewish authorities of that day, and to set up his kingdom by force, by means of military force, just normally the way a kingdom would be to be set up. And another option would have been for him and his disciples to, instead of going out to the garden, because Jesus knew Judas was coming there to betray him and they were going to arrest him there, just to keep going, go out in the desert somewhere. There was a group that lived out in the desert called the Essenes at the community called Qumran. It's where later the Dead Sea Scrolls, that's where they came from, that were later found. This was the writings of that community that lived out there. So another thought was to go out there with them to sort of retreat, to go out, not to stand and fight like the one option would be, but to go out into the desert, into the wilderness somewhere, and sort of set up like almost a commune type place, sort of secede from the world and set up your own kingdom out there. But he didn't do that either. Jesus neither retreated nor did he attack in the way that the world systems would attack, or in any other kingdom, in both Jew or Gentile, that you would have done this. You would have raised an army, gone out and fought. It was just the way you did things. But he does neither of those. He either, the whole thing in psychology, they talk about the fight or flight syndrome. Well, Jesus did neither. He neither fought nor fled. It was neither the fight nor flight. He didn't engage in battle, nor did he flee. But that's not totally true. He did engage in battle, but he just didn't do it the way we normally would do it. He essentially engaged in battle in a somewhat non-violent sense. Or at least, like I say, not the violence that we normally would think of. This battle, I say in a real sense for him at least, was one in Gethsemane for mankind, for the cosmic powers, if you will, the battle of good versus evil, and you could call it that. The defeat of this world system, the defeat of sin, the defeat of Satan and all, was won at the cross, but it was not won in the way that you would think of winning the battle, normally the way humans would do it. It was done by death, but by his own death. So he chooses to fight, but he doesn't choose to fight the way the world would fight. He chooses sort of a different route than the two options that would seem to be available. Do we retreat or do we attack? We attack, but we attack unarmed. We don't attack with the weapons of this world. And Paul himself says that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. So he chooses to go that way. But after what happened in the garden, essentially the battle, as far as his personal battle, if you will, was done. And he had won it. And he went willingly to win the even bigger battle. And that's traditionally associated with the Thursday of the Holy Week, of what happens, obviously the institution of the Lord's Supper, as well as his going into Gethsemane. Okay, well, with that lesson, I wanted to do that first just in case I got cut off again and it didn't last as long as I was hoping it would. And so I could get all that on. I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't even know how long it's been recording. But now I'm going to get it and going to look at some of where I'm at here. It's about 15 minutes it's been recording, so hopefully all that got on. All right, now you can see where I'm at here. This is sort of a wetland area here, and this is, you can see where I was sitting here. It's for anyone to come and sort of just sit and watch it. If you want to, you want to be wary of what's possibly out there. And let me tell you, when I was hiking up for here, I'm gonna hike back the same way. I may not do the whole thing on there, but I may not get it all on tape. I may cut it before the end. I did see a snake today. I don't know what kind it was. I think it was not a poisonous snake, I'm fairly certain. I should clarify something on that too. We say poisonous snakes and venomous snakes interchangeably. Really, we should just say venomous. There's no such thing as a poisonous snake. Venom is a type of saliva in the mouth. It's just for some things. Some types are very deadly, and some of the snakes have developed that. But the venomous snakes we would have out here, rattlesnakes and copperheads, and possibly water moccasins too, being this close to the water. But where I saw this at would have been more away from the water, so probably the only types of venomous snakes there would be rattlesnakes and copperheads. But this wasn't either one of those. This was the snake was had a black color, so it may have been a black snake or a rat snake of some kind. But at any rate, where I saw it was up in the, I was walking along the trail, and I could hear some noise along the leaves up in the woods kind of beside me. Because where I was walking at, one side was kind of going uphill and one downhill. And I could hear some noise, some rustling in the leaves. And I could tell it wasn't a bird or any other type of mammal that's usually over there in those areas. Because they make a different noise. This was making sort of a continual noise. I looked up and I could see the snake slithering uphill. Now, I didn't get the camera out then because I didn't want to have to make two different videos, because I was going to wait till I got over here to record that. So didn't get to film it on there. You couldn't have seen it very well anyhow, but I could see it slithering up through there, and I could tell it was sort of a darkish type color. So I just wanted to show kind of what I've said about snakes before, that generally speaking they will avoid human contact. If at all possible, they're not going to engage with humans. They much prefer to avoid human contact because we're a lot bigger than they are. They can see us and see something that could potentially kill them. But if forced to, if cornered, they will try to defend themselves. Even poisonous snakes will, generally speaking, avoid human contact. So what my statement about snakes is this: I don't want to be afraid of them, but I do want to respect them. And it's, by the way, the same thing with all other wildlife too. Is generally not to be afraid of it, unless it's something like a big bear. Then, in case you probably need to be afraid of it. But more than anything else, you want to respect it, knowing one, this is their home out here, and they're just trying to defend themselves generally. But very few of them, other than, like I say, some of the bigger animals, which we don't have very many of here, they're not going to try to kill you unless you pose a danger to them. Now, right here, these trees have fallen over this path. Now, I doubt very seriously there's a snake in there that could do me any harm. But I'm going to, when I came up here, I walked around because I can beat on the ground a little more, even going through some of this brush over here, and kind of beat on the ground and sort of get around this. So you'll hear my feet doing a lot of crunching in here. I can show you here, I can do like this with my stick, my walking stick that I've got, and go through this just to sort of make sure that I can, anything that's in my way will move, hopefully. So if I don't film this very well, understand that's not my primary focus right now. My primary focus is getting through here. And the bigger problem probably is going to be some of these bushes type things that are in my way. If I had something where I could knock those things down, you know, cut these limbs up, or these over here up, I would. Eventually, of course, they will rot on their own. You can see right here, by the way, that over here on the end, let me just stop for the moment. And that tree right there, you can see where it's come up, and then it's come down to right in here. So that's the wrong way with that. That's the tree that's fallen over here. It's sort of blocking my path. Also, I saw a snail today as I was walking. He was crawling along, then he kind of sensed me being there. Now I've made it around those. Just to show you, there they are on the other side. And that's where that area right there is where I walk through. Anyway, that snail, he was going across the path. I got closer to him, he curled up in his shell. So maybe I'll see something on the way back. Now right here, this has been here for a long time, obviously. Somebody has cut that. Years ago, I used to walk this a lot more. It's been a while since I've been out here. So where I was up there, they used to have a deck like the one I was sitting on, but it was on another side of that. So that's been torn down. And here's another tree that's crossed the path here. Now what I will do here, I just going to poke around under it and hope if anything's there, it's going to make its move one way or the other. Right there it says it's the aquatic viewing area. That's where I was just at. Now we go back down to this way. This is kind of where I'm going here, or at least the first part of where I'm going is a kind of a swampy area. And there's another area here I've actually got to jump over the creek and hope I don't get my feet wet. Right here there's a bridge, a little small footbridge, which I remember this bridge from years ago. It was not almost, right now it's almost submerged. It's just barely over the water. You can kind of see here that it's just barely above the water. Matter of fact, it's a little squishy even when you're walking on it. You can actually see, I don't know if you can see it in here or not, there's some tadpoles. I think that's what those are, swimming around in there. And somebody's jerked up part of this one right here to give you something to walk across, which is good. And then you kind of have to try to, as best you can, avoid the mud right here. Now right here, I'm thinking, let's see if you can see these prints here. I'm thinking somebody probably came through here with their dog. With those prints there, a lot of people hike here and you see them with dogs. That's a kind of a big one though. And now here's the area I'm gonna have to jump across somewhere. I came across this way coming over. I'll see if I can do the same thing going back. Now here again, my number one priority is not going to be filming at the moment. So, all right, I made it. Sorry, there was something crawling along the camera there. You hear, I don't know if y'all could hear it on here, you can hear the birds out. Now, one thing too, we had some rain last night, but today, you can see the sky, as blue as it can be. Which is probably why, like I said, on days like this is when you know snakes may be out sunning. Be out getting their, regulating their body heat. So it's why you, anytime you want to be mindful of that. But I suspect that one that I ran across before heard me long before I heard him. And that's why he skedaddled. Because he did not want to run the risk of running into something that's a lot bigger than it is. Yeah. As well here, you can still see on some of these trees up here, the leaves have still not come in. But on some of them, right over here, there's a dogwood way back there. Yeah. And there's several of those around. But around here, you can see, these are some more of those sweet gums that I've told you have the distinctive starfish looking leaf to them. Even when they first come out, they have that same look. Like right here. That's of course that's a small tree. The tree will get bigger. There's some more of them through here. Only thing that difference from the leaf is just the size of it, not the shape. There's another footbridge right here, coming up on. We've even got some of these little flowers again through here.